Hello, dear reader. Today's Kate's Notes is about The Blue Hour by Paula Hawkins, the very same who brought us Girl on the Train, brings us another gripping slow burn, this time about artsy people. So, before we get into it, let's take a minute and see what I had to say when I judged this book by its cover. Clearly, we're on a deserted island with a struggling artist who's looking out her window and just painting during the blue hour when the light is best, and apparently also the best time for dark deeds to be afoot because she witnesses something. And then it's just all about her trying to convince everybody, that she saw something and them gaslighting her. Same old. But I think maybe Paula Hawkins might twist us this time, and instead of a tragedy, maybe this is more of a comedy of errors. Okay, so I was way off base when I judged this one. Even with my BS degree from college, I still cannot find a kernel of truth in where I judged this book and what I actually read. So, what is this book about? This book centers on a man named James Becker, who is an expert on the late artist Vanessa Chapman. Now, Becker gets called back to review her old home and belongings because one of the sculptures in their collection, and instead of the animal bone they thought it apparently might be a human bone, which causes all sorts of a kerfluffle, as you can imagine. So Becker must venture forth to Eris Island, this very isolated island, where Vanessa's friend and former caretaker, Grace, still resides. Now, let me tell you what tangled webs we weave. Okay, Becker is forced to go out to Eris Island to confront this lady Grace about Vanessa Chapman's belongings, her journals, her notebooks, her sketchings, because all of anything that was considered her art collection was left to his employer in Vanessa's will, and Grace has not been forthcoming with those items. Becker is a little hesitant to leave because he does have a pregnant wife, Helena, who is a high society lady, and Becker constantly feels like he's living imposter syndrome because he is not of that mold. Meanwhile, his boss, Sebastian, was formerly engaged to Helena, and his boss's mother also still resides there on the estate. She's a spiteful old woman, and that's putting it nicely. And Sebastian's late father kind of had an affair with Vanessa Chapman, the artist. That's why she left the whole collection to them, I guess. I don't know. You will find out when you read, but it makes old lady Fairburn not pleased. So, tangled webs we weave. I'm telling you, these people, they are messy. And poor old James Becker, with his working class background, is caught up in the spider's web. Now, here is where it gets messier. Vanessa Chapman was married to a man named Julian who disappeared over 20 years ago after he visited Vanessa on the island. Just poof. No sightings, no leads in those 20 years. So there's this big unspoken fear that this bone in her sculpture that is suddenly a human bone, it might belong to her ex-husband, except they never got divorced. They just had a very tumultuous relationship on and off again. You know how artists are wont to do. They just love a passionate relationship that is great, and then it goes up in flames, and then it's great again. It gives them life. So, as Becker visits this island a few times throughout the book, we are going to start to see the events of the past through Vanessa's journal entries, as well as recollections from Grace's point of view. We're going to hear from Grace, who's been living out there because Vanessa left the house to Grace. So, we're going to find out their relationship. And it's all going to slowly come together. So it was kind of like a spider just slowly building its web. When I said it was a slow burn, it was a slow burn. Not my favorite Paula Hawkins. I was not happy with the ending. I would have liked to see some more loose ends tied up nicely. And by that, I mean I wanted to see some justice. I want to see justice served, hot, cold, I don't care. I wanted some people to get their comeuppance because it doesn't happen in real life, and that's kind of why I read books. Anyway, it was also giving misery. You know, us old fogies might remember that movie from the late 1900s, so that might tip you off a little, but it was still a good read, just definitely a little bit of a slow burn. Anyway, that's all I have to say about that one. Tune in next time for another Kate's Notes. I believe we've got maybe one more to go, and then it will be time to skedaddle back to the library for another haul to judge some more books. So, bye!